In today's session, we'll be learning about the basics of computer. So before starting with this, let me tell you the goals. Like what are we covering in today's session? So we'll be learning about the computer, the characteristics of it, the components of it, the input and output devices, and CPU. So we'll be covering these particular concepts and in detail we'll be learning about it in each and every topic. Okay, so let's get started. So what's computer? So all of you might be obviously knowing about it. So a computer is an electronic device. But why? Because it's made up of electronic components, right? And it uses electric energy as well to operate, and that's the reason we call it as electronic device. For example, if you will have to give certain examples of these devices, it can be desktop computers, laptop computers, mobile phones, tablet computers, a kind of storage devices. You can consider like flash drives and all. So these are some examples of electronic devices. Then I have mentioned something called IPO. So, what is this IPO all about? So, IPO stands for input, process, and output. So, these three steps describe the basic principle and the sequence of data processing. Like it ranges from personal computers to smartphones, like a wide variety of devices still work according to this principle. So, let us learn about this in detail. I have certain examples over here. So, the first example is about digital camera. So, I have given an example of digital camera. So, this is the one which we use to take pictures with and then transfer directly from the camera to the computer. So this is an example of digital camera which stores images onto various forms of computerized storage. It can be memory cards or smart disks, right? As you can see in this picture over here, a camera that records the images in digital format, and that's the reason we call it as digital camera, right? So that is the input where you capture the image and it processes it, and finally it gives you the output through the printer, right? That is what you get it in digitalized format. Let us move on to the next one. So if at all you will have to prepare hamburger, so how do we do that? First of all, we need the ingredients. So the input is lettuce, tomatoes, patty, bun, and ketchup. So once you have all the ingredients with you, you will start cooking, right? So that is what the process is. So you will start cooking the patty, put the ingredients together, and finally you will get the hamburger out of it, which is your final result, the output. So the next one is, okay, let us consider that you will have to prepare an orange juice. So what's the input? What do we need? Obviously we need oranges, so I have some oranges over here as the input. Then what do we need? We'll have to grind them or mix them through the mixer, that is process, and finally you will get the output of it, that is orange juice. Coming to the calculator, so obviously the numbers which you enter into the calculator will be the input. Suppose 3 and 2, that is what I have entered, that is the input. And what's process? Some operation gets performed depending on the operator which you have used, like it can be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So in this case I have a plus over here, it processes it and finally it gives you the result, that is 5, depending on the operator. So these are some examples of IPO. Let's get started with the next topic, which is components of computer system. So we have four components over here: memory, ALU, control unit, hardware and software. So let's learn about this in detail now. So this is the block diagram of a computer. So as I explained you about the input and output, that is IPO. So here you could see that the input is a program and data. So that is what we give, the program, the code which you give, or the data. It can be an information that will be fed as an input, and something will happen, the process takes place over there. That is storage, right? It stores whatever has been done. So we have two kinds of storage over here. One is secondary storage and the other one is primary storage. So this incomplete, we tell it as storage. And finally you will get output out of it. So it will be the results or the information which you are expecting to get it from. And then I also have CPU, which is interconnected, which contains two parts again. One is CU and the other one is ALU. So we'll learn about all of these things. Coming to ALU, the major operations performed by the ALU are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, logic and comparison as well. So what happens is the data is transferred to ALU from the storage unit when required. See, as you can see the lines over there, I'll just point out this to you so that you will get to know. So see, this is the storage, right? So data will be transferred from here to the ALU from the storage unit whenever it's required. So after processing, what happens once it's done with the processing? That is, after processing, the output is returned back to storage unit. Let me just write it in this way. Let me just erase this. Okay, so first what happens, data is transferred to ALU from the storage unit whenever it's required. So after it's done with the processing, what happens, the output is returned back to storage unit for further processing if it is there anything. You can see the arrow from here, it goes down and again it goes back, right? So this is what the process takes place. It goes back to the storage unit for further processing or getting stored, and finally it gives you the output. Okay, so done. Let us start with the first component, which is memory. So obviously everyone will be knowing about it. What's memory? It's the computer memory, right? As we all have a brain to store the data, to store the information. So what is this memory all about? It's a device, or we can also call it as a system, that is used to store information for immediate use in a computer, or related to computer hardware and digital electronic devices. So in simple, we call it as it's a storage medium of the computer system. And again, the memory is categorized into two parts. One is primary memory and the other one is secondary memory, which we just saw in the block diagram. So now, what's the difference between these two? Coming to primary, so it's a temporary, or you can also call it as volatile memory. But when you compare that with secondary memory is a permanent one. It's not temporary. Coming to primary again, it stores data for a temporary period. Okay, so whatever information you give, it will be just stored for a temporary period, but not for the permanent, not for a long time. Coming to secondary, it can store a large amount of data in it. And again, primary memory is categorized into two parts. One is RAM and the other one is ROM. RAM stands for read access memory and ROM is read only memory. Coming to secondary memory, whatever information, whatever you have done, everything will be saved into the secondary memory, and it cannot be deleted without the user's permission. That is the main thing. But here in the primary memory, what happens is it will just stay for certain amount of time, as the name itself says, it's temporary. Okay, so these are some examples of, these are the differences of a primary and secondary memory. And the next one is ALU, which is the next component of the computer system. So now let us learn about this. As the name itself says, it's arithmetic logic unit. Arithmetic and logic unit. So this is used to perform arithmetic and logic operations. Okay, and we can also call it as this is a part of a computer processor, because it represents the fundamental building block of CPU of a computer. What happens is the modern CPUs contains very powerful and complex ALUs. Okay, so it's a part of a computer processor. The next one is control unit. So as the name itself says, it controls. So it controls all the devices connected to the computer, so that interruption between device communications cannot happen. Okay, so the control unit is the part of the computer's CPU which directs the operation of the processor. So it doesn't the interruption cannot happen between the communication of the devices. And it doesn't only it not only controls the device communication, but also controls the program executions. So that is one more important thing of this control unit. And it mainly communicates between processor, memory, and computer peripherals. It includes both input and output devices. So the next one, the very essential part of the components, the very essential part which is involved in the components of computer system is, this is the one which is hardware and software. So we cannot do anything when we don't have a hardware or software, right? Let us start with the hardware. As you can see, there are multiple internal hardware components, which is used in the cabinet of CPU. So we have floppy drive, system cooling fan, power supply, motherboard, RAM modules, optical drive, hard drive, CPU. Yes, these are some hardware components. Let us learn about. So it's one of the tangible components of the computer. Certain examples are mouse, keyboard, monitor, printer, processor, motherboard, cables, and few more things. Proceeding with the software part. So I have given the pictorial representation of few kinds of softwares there. So you might be knowing these softwares. So what's this software all about? So it's a program or set of instructions to perform a specific task. And not like a hardware, you can see that uh, you know indirect. It's I could say that hardware is where you can see that object, but if you consider the software, you cannot see that, so it cannot be seen by users. And all the softwares will run on the hardware itself. Certain examples are operating system like Windows, Linux, Ubuntu, and Microsoft Office like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Coming to the characteristics of computer system. So let us start with speed. Okay, so a computer works with much higher speed and accuracy compared to humans while performing some mathematical calculations. These computers can process like almost millions of instructions per second, and the time taken by computers for their operations is microseconds and nanoseconds. Okay, so that is all about the speed. And the next one is accuracy. So computers perform calculations with 100% accuracy. But it's not like it doesn't give you any kind of error. Errors may occur just because of the inconsistency or inaccuracy. Okay? Okay, so the next one is diligence. So a computer can perform millions of tasks or calculations with the same consistency and accuracy as well. It doesn't feel like, you know, as we will be having a kind of, not a concentration, like not concentrating on one particular thing for a long time. It's not like that. Its memory also makes it, superior to that of human beings. It doesn't have a kind of lack of concentration and all. Okay, so that is all about diligence. And the next one is versatility. So this is nothing but the capability of a computer, which performs different kinds of works with the same accuracy and efficiency. Even there are few humans, what they do is they'll perform several tasks, right? They perform different kinds of work within the same accuracy, but not all of them, only few of them. And computer is like it performs multiple kind, of works with the same efficiency and accuracy. And the next one is power of remember. So computer has the power of storing huge amount of information or data. So the information can be stored and recalled as long as you require it, like for any number of years. So a computer cannot take its own decision as you can, because it's just a machine, isn't it? So that is all about power of remembering. And the next one is no IQ. That is for sure, right? The computer system has no IQ of its own. It does only what it is programmed to do. It cannot take decisions of its own. It's just diligent because it can work continuously for hours together without getting any errors or, without getting grumbled. So that is all about no IQ. And the next one is no feeling. Do you think computer has feelings? No, not at all. So computer is a dumb machine and it cannot do any work without the instruction from the user. So a computer cannot take its own decision as you can. No feeling at all. It does not have feelings or emotion, taste, knowledge, or experience as well. So the next one is storage. As the name itself says, storage, like it's a process through which digital data is saved within a data storage device. And it's a kind of mechanism that enables a computer to retain the data. Either it can be temporarily or permanently. Okay, so that is all about storage. So these are the characteristics of a computer. So what are the characteristics? Speed, accuracy, diligence, versatility, power of remembering, no IQ, no feeling, and storage. Okay, so these are the characteristics of it. So let's proceed with the next one. Input devices. Okay, so this is also the important concept, because whatever you do, you will be having some kind of input device to fed, right? To feed to the computer. So these are some examples, and these are very common input devices which we use, like keyboard, mouse, joystick, trackball, scanner, touch screen, web camera, and microphone. So let us start with the first one, which is keyboard. So a computer keyboard is an input device that allows a person to enter the letters, it can be numbers, and the symbols, right? Together these are called characters into a computer, and it is one of the most used input devices for the computers. The next one is mouse. So the mouse is a small, I can also say it as a movable device that lets you control a range of things on a computer, right? Like most types of mouse have two buttons, and some will have a wheel in between the buttons. Yeah, and most types of mouse connect to the computer with a cable, and it uses the computer's part to work. And some types of mouse are wireless. So that is all about mouse. And coming to the next one, which is joystick. So you people might be knowing about joystick, obviously, because it's a kind of cursor control device which is used in computer games, like which got its name from the control stick used by a pilot to control, the I can call it as to control the elevators of airplane. Yeah, so in simple we can call it as a cursor controlled device. So that is all about joystick. The next one, trackball. So a trackball is a computer cursor control device used in many notebook and laptop computers. So the user rolls the ball to direct the cursor to the desired place on the screen and can click one of the two buttons, which is near the trackball, to select the desktop objects or to position the cursor for the text entry. And scanner. So we can also call it as optical scanner, which is a computer input device again, that uses a light beam to scan codes or the text or the graphic images directly into a computer for the computer or the computer system. And you might have seen those barcode scanners, right? So they are used widely at point of sale terminals in retail stores as well. And the next one is touch screen. So as of now, all of them use touch screen itself. It's a computer display screen that serves as an input device. Like, I'm not talking about the computers. It can be an electronic device such as mobile and all, right? So we all use touch screen itself now. So coming to this computer, yeah, the display screen, which serves as an input device again. So what happens is, when a touch screen is touched by a finger, or we also use stylus, so that registers the event and sends it to a controller for processing. So the touch screen may contain pictures or words that the user can touch to interact with the device. The next one is webcam, which is a digital video device commonly built into a computer. So the main function is to transmit the pictures over the internet, and it's popularly used with the instant messaging services and for recording images as well. But few web camera devices, they might require you to install some software that comes with it. So finally, we have a microphone, which is a hardware peripheral and input device. So it allows the computer users to input the audio into their computers. So this is all about input devices. So again, in this we have certain categories like manual input devices and direct data entry devices. So as the name itself says, it's manual. What happens is, the user will have to enter the data into the computer by hand. That is called manual. And what is direct data entry devices? So it can transfer information automatically from a source document, it can be a form or the barcode, into the computer. So what do you mean by this? You're not entering anything, right, using your hand. It's just taking this automatically, just by scanning a kind of barcode, like these things and all. This is an input again, and it doesn't manually enter the information. Yeah, and they are used when large volumes of data must be entered into the computer quickly. When you have to do some simple things, you can just do it manually, but when it goes to a huge amount, this will be used, the direct data entry devices. So let us see some examples of manual input devices. The first one, keyboard. as I just explained you about the keyboard. So they are the input devices that allow the entry of data and the commands just by pressing down the keys on the keyboard, right? We just press them. Pointing device, that is nothing but mouse. So I explained you about this as well. As you can see, there are two buttons on this mouse, and you also have what do I say, the wheel in between those two buttons. So a pointing device found on most of the personal computers, right? And the sensors on the bottom of the mouse, they detect when the mouse is moved. So the sensors are used over here. Whenever you move your cursor, it'll be, it'll be captured. The next one is direct data entry devices. You can also call it as DDE. So as you can see these examples, these are some of the direct data entry devices which can be used, which does it automatically. So the next one is output devices. Here are some examples like web camera, microphone, printer, headphones, monitors, speakers. So obviously you know all of these things. So what is the output device? So that's a piece of a computer hardware which is used to communicate the results of data that has been processed. So it can be monitor, printer, speaker, headphones. Proceeding with the next concept, CPU, that is Central Processing Unit. So CPU is the brain of the computer, right? And it is the device that carries out software instructions. So that is what it does. And it's responsible for performing calculations and data processing. And it also have a large fan attached to their top to keep them cool. You could see the fan over there, right? Let me just highlight it. So it's here, right? This one. So this is all about CPU. Okay, so now there are two main brands. One is Intel CPU and the other one is AMD CPU. You can see that pictorial representation of it over here. So to tell you about the differences between these two, when you compare AMD versus Intel chips, this AMD CPUs, they are great at multitasking, while Intel CPUs accomplish single thread tasks better. Like the tasks that use multiple cores include photo and video editing programs, or 3D modeling and rendering the programs, graphics heavy games, and demanding productivity apps as well. So I have also given a difference. The difference is like comparing Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It's just a matter of preference, okay? So Intel CPUs do perform better at certain tasks, but they cost more than AMD AMD CPUs. Okay, so this is the basic information about both of these. So this is all about AMD and Intel. Like AMD is nothing but the advanced micro devices. Okay, so that is all about CPU, and thank you so much. We'll be continuing in the next session.